Our story unfolds in a well-known company, where our protagonist, Li Xiulai, at the age of 28, made a decisive decision. He chose to quit the rat race and resign from one of the top 100 companies in the country. As he packed up his belongings and prepared to leave, he was pleasantly surprised to see his friends, who had worked with him, come to see him off. His friends congratulated him and wished their team leader a bright future. Moments later, Li Xiulai invited his friends to a 5-star hotel to throw a farewell party. During the party, one of his friends with green hair exclaimed, "I can't believe you actually resigned. It wasn't easy to reach this position, and Mr. Guo thought highly of you. Your future promotions and wealth were guaranteed." Li Xiulai replied with a big smile, "I've made peace with myself. I want to lie flat, be a salted fish, enjoy life, and spend more time with my girlfriend. I don't want to compete anymore." A girl with blue hair asked, "What are you going to do next?" Li Xiulai responded, "I'm planning to open a cafe, play with cats, and walk dogs." Seeing how idyllic his future sounded, the girl with blue hair got excited and said, "Wow, that's great. No more 24/7 work. You'll be your own boss. Team leader, I'm so envious of you for quitting just like that. Unfortunately, I have a mortgage and a car loan. If I don't work, I'll default on my payments." Another friend of Li Xiulai chimed in, "When your cafe becomes successful, I'll bring clients to drink coffee there. You must give us a discount." Li Xiulai assured them, "Don't worry, I'll treat everyone." Everyone stood up from their seats, raised their wine glasses, and toasted, "If we get rich, let's not forget each other." Sometime later, after Li Xiulai opened his cafe, it thrived, becoming a popular local spot with its unique decor, attracting countless visitors. Li Xiulai was filled with hope for the future, feeling that everything was going well. Standing in front of his cafe with his girlfriend, he said, "Guifen, did you know? Last month, our cafe's net profit was 100,000 yuan. He assured his girlfriend, "Guifen, at this rate, we'll recover our initial investment in just one more year." Guifen, amazed by Li Xiulai's ambition, said, "Darling, you're amazing." At that time, Li Xiulai thought that resigning and risking everything to start a trendy cafe with over 1 million yuan in investment was the best decision of his life. But then, one day, bulldozers arrived to destroy his cafe. He demanded they stop and asked, "What are you doing?" The construction manager replied, "This land has been requisitioned by our leading group. All irrelevant personnel must leave." Li Xiulai, shocked, told them he hadn't heard anything about a demolition and demanded that they couldn't go through with it. The construction manager, Wang, told Li Xiulai, "You should ask your landlord about this. I'm just doing my job." Another man asked, "Brother Wang, what's going on? Who's this guy?" Li Xiulai insisted, "Hold off on the demolition. Let me clarify the situation first." The man urged him to hurry, saying, "Our project manager has a 3-day schedule for this area." In shock, Li Xiulai called his landlord, thinking, "Landlord, you need to explain why I was told today that the property I just rented and renovated is being demolished." Brother Wang, observing Li Xiulai, wondered, "This guy seems to have rented this place. Doesn't he know it was planned for demolition long ago?" Another worker remarked, "That's really unlucky." The landlord asked Li Xiulai, "Didn't I tell you about this?" He then apologized, saying, "I might have forgotten because I was busy. Anyway, that's the situation now." He advised Li Xiulai to hire a moving company to take his stuff away. Angry, Li Xiulai demanded, "What about the money I spent on renovations and marketing?" The landlord smiled and replied, "It's demolition. There's nothing we can do. We have to follow the city's development plans. Besides, isn't demolition for the city's betterment?" Li Xiulai, still upset, argued, "You had an obligation to inform me about the demolition before renting the place to me. Now you need to compensate me for the losses, or it counts as a breach of contract." The landlord laughed and said, "Compensate? I didn't say I wouldn't. I'll cover your moving expenses later." Brother Wang, observing the situation, remarked, "This kid seems young and inexperienced. Starting a business these days, you can't just think about making money. You have to consider all the risks." Another man agreed, adding, "Cash flow is still the most important." Fuming, Li Xiulai accused the landlord, "You deliberately hid the information. Isn't this a scam?" The landlord, hearing this, responded, "Do you understand force majeure? Sue me if you want. Here's a piece of advice. Never skimp on hiring a lawyer. Do you even have money?" He continued, "I already gave you a big discount when you rented the place. Besides, when we signed the contract that morning, I really didn't know about the demolition. I found out in the afternoon and then got busy and forgot. Haven't you made a lot of money these past few months? The landlord then laughed and said, I'll give you an extra 10,000 yuan as compensation. That's my best offer. Li Shulai, frustrated, remembered overhearing the landlord talking to his family about spending 170,000 yuan per person on an Antarctic tour package, where the rooms below deck were supposedly uninhabitable. Yet here he was, offering only 10,000 yuan as compensation. The landlord told Li Shulai, I have urgent matters to attend to, and we'll talk about this later, and then hung up the phone. Li Shulai, furious and unsure of what to do, watched as the construction workers began their work. He angrily remarked, Do you think I'll just let you bully me like this? This is my hope, my future that I've poured everything into. I will protect it with my own hands. Afterward, he went home and made some calls to people he knew, hoping for help. However, everyone either ignored his calls or made excuses. Disappointed and at a loss for what to do, Li Shulai felt utterly helpless. Li Shulai sent a message to the landlord, asking him to at least refund the rent for the past 3 years. However, the landlord blocked him. Feeling depressed and sad, he heard his girlfriend, Guifen, call his name. Li Shulai was happy to see Guifen back, thinking, Fortunately, there's still Guifen, always by my side. Guifen asked Li Shulai if he had thought of a solution. Li Shulai tried to reassure her, saying, Don't worry too much. We can start over. I calculated that selling the tables, chairs, and coffee machines could get us 100,000 to 200,000 yuan to cover urgent needs, and the landlord just needs to return the rent, giving us another few 100,000 yuan. Next time, we'll be more cautious in choosing a location. Using our previous reputation, we can open a community store. It won't be a problem to make a living. However, Guifen then brought up Zhao Lide. Li Shulai, feeling a surge of anger, asked, Is he harassing you again? Guifen shook her head and replied, No, I wanted to talk about us. I think we should break up. Li Shulai was shocked to hear this. The girl he liked, for whom he had done everything, was breaking up with him now that he had no money. He held Guifen's hands and asked her, Why? Don't you believe I can overcome this hurdle? Just give me some more time, and I'll solve this issue. I've solved my previous work problems well, and even climbed higher. Guifen moved closer to Li Shulai, speaking emotionally. I actually want to help you. Zhao Lide is very generous. I haven't agreed to be with him yet, but he already gave me a platinum bag worth tens of thousands of yuan. She showed him the luxurious bag that Zhao Lide had given her, adding, He's really generous. Surprised, Li Shulai asked Guifen, How could you accept his gift while being with me? Guifen didn't respond directly, but thought to herself, That old man Zhao Lide gave me too much. Less work, more money. Who can resist such temptation? But there's still a bit of reluctance. Shulai is capable, handsome, strong, gentle, and considerate. She then told Li Shulai, Zhao Lide, he's old, and it seems he won't live for many more years. I'll agree to be with him for now. Once I stabilize things with him, I can secretly help you. We'll just go from being public to secret. I truly love you, Shulai. You're the only one I love, being with Zhao Lide. I can also help you solve your current crisis. He promised that if I agreed to be with him, he'd immediately give me 1 million yuan. With this 1 million yuan, we could save the cafe. However, Li Shulai pushed her away, shouting angrily, Even if I'm destitute and homeless, I won't be a cuckold, relying on a woman selling her body to support me. I've seen what shamelessness is. Get lost, Guifen. Hearing this, Guifen became furious. Who wants to be with a man deep in debt, unable to afford rent? She spat, turning to leave. But before she walked away, she warned, Don't come back begging me with your head down. Li Shulai, still enraged, yelled after her, Get lost! I don't ever want to see your face again. Sometime later, it began to rain heavily. Li Shulai wandered through the streets, drenched and despondent, trying to figure out what to do next. He thought about selling his coffee machines and other items from the cafe, but the buyer told him that second-hand coffee machines these days are sold by weight. They're not worth as much as he had hoped. And those tables and chairs, how much could they sell for? Now he had nowhere to live. The house he had been renting was no longer available to him, because debt collectors were causing trouble every day. They had splashed the door with red paint so many times that the landlord had kicked him out. Every day the debt collectors demanded to know when he would pay back the money, coming to threaten him relentlessly. Frustrated and disappointed, Li Shulai didn't know what to do. He returned to where his cafe had once stood, now demolished, and thought, I clearly overcame the hardest step, seized the opportunity, and succeeded in my business. Why am I encountering such a low probability event? Why am I at such a dead end? He looked up at the sky and asked, God, are you playing with me? If you want to play, then play me to death. Sitting in the middle of the construction site, he took out a cigarette and muttered to himself, I will overcome these difficulties. But it seemed that fate had other plans. The brakes of a construction crane suddenly failed, and it collapsed on top of Li Shulai. At the age of 28, Li Shulai died from being crushed by the crane, losing too much blood. Even after death, he couldn't accept his fate. He found himself watching his own body as the police and ambulance arrived, taking care of the scene. He thought, good people get good rewards. That's just a myth. In the end, it's people like me who suffer. But then something strange happened. He noticed a golden light emerging from the spot where his cafe had once stood. As he approached, the golden light grew more intense. Li Shulai covered his eyes, wondering, why is there a shimmering golden light? Suddenly, a series of notifications began popping up in front of him, saying, Project 986 initiated, Project 212 initiated, Penguin Company established, Alibaba established, Baidu established. Confused, Li Shulai wondered, is this what they call life flashing before your eyes? More notifications appeared. Beijing won the right to host the 2008 Olympics, joined the WTO, house prices skyrocketed, Shenzhou 6 launched into space, Qinghai Tibet Railway opened, and many more. These were all events he had experienced in his life, but now they seemed to matter little to him. However, it wasn't just his life events that he saw. He also saw galaxies and floating islands in space. The most shocking sight was people fighting a demon-like being. Confused, he wondered, what are these things? They're getting more abstract. As he tried to approach them, he suddenly fell into a ditch. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a classroom, sitting next to someone. The boy sitting beside him asked if he was okay. Li Shulai looked at the boy and was shocked. Zhang Ming, are you dead too? Zhang Ming, puzzled, asked. Are you all right? Don't say such unlucky things in broad daylight. Li Shulai stood up from his seat and looked around, wondering, Asterisk, is this heaven? At least I did good deeds all my life, so let me go to heaven. Zhang Ming, confused, asked, Have you changed? Why are you even sleeping through Old Man Guo's class? Isn't it your favorite class? What's up, dreaming of being paralyzed or something? Professor Guo noticed Li Shulai and asked, Why are you suddenly standing up in the middle of class? Li Shulai was stunned upon seeing Professor Guo, because, in his previous life, Professor Guo had been a great benefactor to him. When his family was poor during his school days, Professor Guo supported him in many ways, and helped him apply for scholarships, allowing him to continue his studies. But unfortunately, good people don't always get good rewards. Professor Guo had committed suicide by jumping off a building in Li Shulai's senior year, due to false accusations from a rich second-generation girl, Zhang Shuili. Zhang Shuili had falsely accused Professor Guo of forcing her to sleep with him in order to pass her thesis defense. Professor Guo tried to explain to everyone that it wasn't true, insisting that Zhang Shuili was talking nonsense, and that he had never said such things to her. However, no one believed him. Zhang Shuili, being from a wealthy and powerful family, used her influence to trap him. Unable to bear the shame and the false accusations, Professor Guo tragically committed suicide. That's how Li Shulai's benefactor died unjustly and undeservedly, right in front of him. Seeing Professor Guo again, Li Shulai became emotional and hugged him tightly, saying, Professor Guo, I knew with your character you would definitely go to heaven. Thank you so much for nurturing me. Without your careful guidance, I wouldn't have been able to make it here. You must be ready to reincarnate, right? How many numbers ahead? I should calculate when I can reincarnate too. I wish you a good reincarnation, full of wealth and glory. Angry, Professor Guo grabbed a book and hit Li Shulai on the head. What are you talking about? Are you in a rush to reincarnate and dragging me along? How much cat piss did you drink yesterday? Zhang Ming quickly came to Li Shulai's rescue and told Professor Guo, Shulai hit his head this morning and isn't thinking clearly. You're magnanimous, so just take it as him being confused. Don't mind it. Then Zhang Ming turned to Li Shulai and asked, What's wrong with you today? Doing silly things in front of Guo Qiangguo. Hurry up and get back to your seat. Do you want to fail? See if you're dreaming or if you're in class. Surprised, Li Shulai wondered what Zhang Ming meant. But as he looked around, he realized he was in a classroom. Shocked, he quietly returned to his seat. Zhang Ming then advised, "Go wash your face after class. I told you not to stay up late studying at night. You've studied yourself silly." Still confused, Li Shulai wondered, "Why does heaven look like my university classroom?" He looked around to confirm what was going on and saw the school beauty, Xiaoning, sitting behind him. Surprised, Li Shulai thought, I never heard anything happen to her later. How did they all die so young? However, Li Shulai received a disdainful look from Xiaoning, the goddess of his university. Upon seeing this, he started to cry like a baby, thinking, even in death I embarrass myself in front of her. Seeing Li Shulai's childish act, Xiaoning's friend remarked, Li Shulai, he's trying to get your attention, but he's got issues. What girl would like being pursued this way? Li Shulai overheard their conversation and glared at Xiaoning's friend, angered by her words. Frightened, Xiaoning's friend asked, "Why are you giving me that look?" She then turned to Xiaoning, saying, "Don't fall for a creepy guy like Li Shulai." Xiaoning replied confidently, "Of course not, and I never will. He's just seeking attention." Zhang Ming, noticing the situation, whispered to Li Shulai, "Sit properly. Professor Guo is watching you, and stop looking at the goddess." Professor Guo was indeed observing Li Shulai's childish antics. Feeling the weight of Professor Guo's stern gaze, Li Shulai's whole body started to feel cold, thinking Teacher Guo was so serious both before and after his death. As Li Shulai's eyes wandered, he noticed the book on financial markets and investments that he had studied during his college days. Seeing so many familiar details, he began to realize, this doesn't seem like heaven, and it's too coincidental that they all died, finance and investment. This was a course I took in my third year. Unless it's the end of the world, and everyone is dead. But he quickly dismissed that thought, remembering how he died and the events that led to it. Finally, he came to a conclusion. Then it must be the most classic and common novel trope, rebirth. As he pondered this deeply, suddenly the classroom bell rang, signaling the end of class. Everyone began filing out of the classroom, leaving Li Shulai to process the surreal situation he found himself in. After class, Zhang Ming came close to Li Shulai and asked, "What's wrong with you? Did something happen at home? You've been out of it all class." Zhang Ming offered his support, saying, "If something's wrong, tell me. I'll do what I can to help. A nightmare shouldn't make you this distracted. This must mean something happened at home." He handed Li Shulai 100 yuan, saying, "Don't worry too much. All problems will be solved." However, Li Shulai refused, saying, "I can't take this. It's enough for a month's living expenses." Zhang Ming insisted, "Don't worry, we're like brothers. I have plenty of living expenses. Even after giving you this, I still have over 400 left." Seeing Li Shulai still hesitating, Zhang Ming told him, "Consider it an investment. You can pay me back when you become rich. My dad told me your parents' small business has a lot of potential. If my parents kick me out for being wasteful, I can come to you." Reluctantly, Li Shulai accepted the money, saying, "I'll take this as a loan, and I'll pay you back double when I have the money." Zhang Ming smiled and said, "Don't worry too much. Just eat more meat today." Later that night, in their college dorm, Li Shulai found himself unable to sleep. He was still thinking about how he had returned to his third year of college, back in 1998. Whatever the reason, he felt like he had hit the jackpot. He remembered when he died, passing through the darkness. Those events' timelines, from recent to distant, were all etched in his mind. That must have been time travel, he thought. But why were there also scenes of monks fighting and floating islands? Other dimensions. He decided to forget about the strange visions, focusing instead on the information gap he could now exploit. Li Shulai began laughing quietly to himself, remembering the future events he knew were coming. Hearing Li Shulai laughing in the middle of the night, Zhang Ming got irritated and said, "Are you still not sleeping? What are you laughing at under the covers? The bed frame is creaking nonstop. It's annoying." Li Shulai apologized and promised to sleep quietly. But he couldn't help but smile, knowing there was still time to change everything. Zhang Ming, worried about Li Shulai, thought, "He's been distracted all day, looking like he owes millions. And now he's laughing after being scolded at night. Hopeless." Li Shulai finally drifted off to sleep, thinking, "Heaven gave me a second chance. A new life. I must work harder than before. I have to help those I couldn't help in the past. I can't watch them repeat the same fate. He made up his mind that those who had made his previous life a living hell would not get the better of him this time. In this life, he vowed, I won't repeat those mistakes. I'll seize every opportunity this era brings and become the richest man.